Hi, I'm Al Martinez, and welcome to Untrashed. Today we're going to continue some work that we've been doing here, and we're making some props for a Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So today I started making a mushroom, and we're going to use primarily trash to make this mushroom. So a couple of things you can do when you decide to make a mushroom is you can decide how big you want the head to be and how tall you want the mushroom to be. So when I started, I figured the mushroom that I'm going to make is about 18 or 20 inches around at the top, and it's going to be about 24 to 30 inches tall. And I've got a couple of things started using different materials. One of them, the head that I started, I used cardboard. So what you're going to need to do that, if you want to do one in cardboard, is you're going to need a cardboard box, pretty much like these. And everybody's getting lots of these that you can recycle. So the thing that I also become aware of is how big a piece I want that doesn't have any folds or tape. And that's what I did to make the head. So I found some cardboard that I could cut the top out, and it's not completely round because it's organic, okay? So mushrooms are very organic. So this is the one that I did. And you can see it's irregular in shape, and you can see the cardboard printing there. So I basically cut this out first, and then I figured out how tall do I want this to be. So I figured I was going to be about 12 inches tall. So the first thing I did is I cut this centerpiece here that goes all the way across the top of the mushroom. And that, I cut it this shape. Okay, because I want the mushroom to have this shape at the top. So the second thing I did is I cut two more pieces that are at right angles to this centerpiece here. And I cut those to this shape because I want the mushroom to be this shape. So those pieces are glued in with hot glue, and I've got little cardboard tabs, and the cardboard tabs can be pretty simple. This is the greatest thing about cardboard. Now the thing you want to notice about the cardboard is these lines here. Okay, so this corrugation gives the cardboard strength this way. It doesn't want to bend this way, but it easily bends this way. See that fold? So you want to use those elements to your advantage. So see that fold there? What I did is I cut a whole bunch of these little squares. So these little squares, with the lines going this way, you can fold it quite easily, and it makes a little bracket in cardboard. So if you're gluing something like this that you want it to be upright, you take this and you glue this there, and that holds it upright. If you're gluing it this way, that goes right in there. And that's what I did in here, as you can see. I've got some here holding this thing to the base, and I've got some on the inside to hold these joined together quite easily. Because this is one long piece and these are separate pieces. So that's how I put this together, and it's actually quite sturdy. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to work on was the stem of the mushroom. And I started one in cardboard. And the thing you need to figure out when you're doing the stem is, because the stem is tapered, the diameter and the circumference of the base is bigger than the top. So I figured that the bottom of the mushroom was going to be 10 inches. So the other thing you need to calculate is you need to calculate how much cardboard do I need this way. So when I bring it into a circle, it's going to make 10 inches. And that's where you have to know a little bit of math. So you know that if you're going to make it 10 inches in diameter, you multiply it by 3.14, which is called pi, and that gives you the circumference. So based on that, I know that I need 31.5 inches. So I started to do it in cardboard. And the other thing you need to figure out is you need to figure out if it's going to be narrow at the top, so your cone tapers. So you do a calculation to say if the top is going to be 6 inches, then the total length of the top needs to be about 18 inches. And the way you can do that is you take your cardboard, you cut it as tall as you want the stem to be, and what you do is you cut these, they're called darts. You cut these darts in the cardboard, so when you close it up, it makes the top narrower. So there you have a tapered stem. So that's basically how you calculate your materials, and then it's up to you what you use. Okay, I've done other things using discarded, these like floor mats, and this is spongy stuff, and it's quite good because it's flexible. The thing about cardboard is you've got to work with these lines that you can fold it this way. If you had the lines this way, it would be much harder to fold, and you would get these creases, which you don't really want. I did the same thing when I also got a hold of this material. Somebody was throwing this away, and this is one of those little mats that you can put down for the kids to play in. So it's plastic, and it's got like a plastic spongy stuff on the inside, but it's flexible. It's flexible like this. So I decided I was going to make the stem out of this stuff. So I cut a piece that was 31.5 inches long, and I said, I'm going to make it the complete length of this, so it's actually going to be that tall. And then, before I put it together, I cut plenty of these darts in here, so that when you put all of these side by side, it's going to come to 18 inches, which will give me a 6-inch opening at the top. And I cut a 6-inch disc to put on the top of here that's going to get glued to the bottom of the top of the mushroom. So here's what this looks like. Okay. So I got the bottom here, and I cut a piece of cardboard in there that I can fix to the bottom to give it a bit of rigidity. And then when I glued this stuff together, I used contact cement, because that's what's best to work with this stuff. You can see this stuff has this white foam on the inside, so that's quite good because the contact cement grabs the pores, and when the contact cement is ready to put together, when you put these two pieces together, it sticks quite good. And I've got some masking tape to hold it in place while it dries. So now that we've got this, we've got the stem and we've got the top, the next thing you want to do is you want to figure out, how am I going to cover this? So I'm thinking, and specifically because this is an untrashed episode, we're going to use something quite different. And we're going to use something that I think is important to figure out what you're going to do with all of these plastic bags that you end up with. So when you go shopping, you come home and you've got oodles of these things. And even though they say you can reuse them, we don't very often do reuse them. So I decided we're going to try and we're going to make this mushroom. And we're going to use these plastic bags to cover the mushroom. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue something on the top here that I'm going to be gluing the ends of these bags on. And I'll glue it in place over these ribs until I cover the whole thing. So being an expert in Untrashed, I collect all sorts of things. So I collect all these things off of milk bottles. I collect medicine bottles. I collect lots of bottle caps, things off of medicine bottles. This is a little cheese carton, and I think that might be, let me think. Let's see what else I think. I might use one of these milk carton ones because it's not quite so big. So I'm going to glue that one on first. The other thing I've said before, and I want to remind you, there's no real rules about how you do things, okay? If you have a picture in your mind of what you want to make, and when I decided I was going to make a mushroom, I had a rough idea of what the mushroom is going to look like. So this is where you can play with the different elements. So I'm going to take this. Put a bit of hot glue there, and I'm going to stick this shopping bag there. And I'm going to pull it a little bit and glue it down in different places. So the thing you want to remind yourself of is the contour of the mushroom. So I'm going to glue it down along these ribs so it forms the shape of the mushroom. When you're working with hot glue, it's always a good idea to wear one glove. Because if you don't, you end up burning yourself, which I've done a lot of. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down here. And I'm going to get another bag. I'm going to try something different here, okay? So remember I said there's no rules? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bottom of this bag off. And cut the handles off. I don't need the handles. I'm going to cut this open. Now we've got a nice flat piece to work with, which I think is going to be easier. I'm going to start here. And then I'm going to pull it around. That's working much better. I'm quite happy with that. And the other thing you could think about doing is you could think about using the paper shopping bags, and instead of using the flat sheet, which isn't as flexible as the plastic, you can cut it into strips and do like paper mache. And what I do when I do that is I have a little bowl of water with some wood glue in it, and what I do is I soak the strips of plastic or the shopping bag in there, and they're like strips of glue. And those you can cut quite thin, and you can basically cross-hatch this whole thing to cover it. So now that I'm going off the mushroom here, I'm going to cut this at an angle here so I can use this on another part here. The other thing I want to remind you of is that sometimes your ideas that you get, they don't work out quite as good as you want them to. So if you want to change your technique, go for it. There's nothing that says you have to stay with the way that you thought it would work out. So I'm thinking I'm not quite happy with the way this is coming out, but I thought, let's give this a shot, see what it's like. This first one that I put on, I don't like it at all. So I'm going to cut some of it off. So this is what I do. If it's not working, I say, okay, that's not working. Let's try something different. try something that might work a little bit better. Because the thing about Untrashed, you do whatever you want. Okay, let's try something different. Let's take the shopping bag and do this. I'm going to cut the bottom off. Cut the handles off. And then I'm going to cut this into strips. Probably about 2 or 3 inches. Now we have a longer strip. It's a little bit more like paper mache, where you're working with smaller strips to cover the surface. I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to stick it to the underside. And then I'm going to pull it like this. So this way, these strips are going to conform to the shape of the mushroom much better. So you can see when I'm putting these on, I'm putting them on an angle so they cross over. And this is going to take quite a few shopping bags, but I think you'll end up with a much more uniform surface that can be decorated. So I'm just going to do this one strip here. And I'll do a couple more strips with one more bag, and then we'll talk about how decorating the surface. And it depends on the look that you want to achieve with your mushroom. Okay, because this program is untrashed, it's going to look like a mushroom that grew at the landfill. Many years ago, I wrote a story about what I call polymites. And they were these creatures developed spontaneously, and they lived on polystyrene. So these little creatures, whenever they found polystyrene, they would eat it. They were called polymites. Anyway, so I'm just going to do one more strip. So let's imagine that you've got this completely covered in shopping bag and you want to add mushroom elements to it. So I'm thinking that because I've got a lot of these, I can do clusters of these Let's see what it looks like. Okay, you never know until you try. The other thing I want you to remember is that when you're doing an art project, and this happens to me all the time, it goes through what I call an ugly duckling stage. Okay, so you're working on something, you have this great idea, and you keep going along. And then you look at it and you say, man, that's ugly. And sometimes I think, what am I doing? But you know, what I do is I keep going. And that's when I really decide I'm going to do something totally different. So I try something really crazy, and the next thing you know, you think, that's pretty good. I like that. Okay, so you have to just be prepared to go through this ugly duckling stage and see what you can do to get it past that. Okay, so I think this is still in the ugly duckling stage, but we're going to just sort of leave it here. And essentially, I just told you how you can start this. And once you've got the basics of how to start something, then it's essentially up to you to see what sort of trash you have. Okay, the kinds of stuff that you save that you can use for later on. And then when you finish, you've got this giant mushroom. And again, you can change whatever you want. You can make this shorter, you can cut this on an angle, so the mushroom is like this. You can add things down here to make it look like the bottom of the mushroom. The thing that you need to understand is that it's up to you, again, to do what you want to create what's in your mind. And looking at all the trash that you've got around, and it can be paper bags, can be bread packages, can be all sorts of things. And essentially, there's no rules, as I keep saying. Okay, so thanks for watching. Remember, every little bit of Untrashed helps.